The following is brought to you by GFL Ag. Next thing you know the next thing. Next is Now is a short podcast discussing agriculture's emerging next-gen tech and trends as they're happening in our industry. Next is Now, presented by GFL Ag. Listen where you get your podcasts today.
I am your host, Lindsay Smith. Joining me now, I've got John Conrad on the line. He is an Assistant Deputy Minister with Alberta Agriculture and Irrigation and has exciting news about a board that he'll be sitting on now that it's all official with the Western Crops Innovations. Welcome here, John.
Oh, thank you very much, Lindsay. It's great to be with you this morning.
Okay, so this news I think came out late last week, so we're digging into what this all means and what this is. So many will be familiar with the Field Crop Development Centre, the FCDC. It is being relaunched as the Western Crops Innovations. So what is Western Crops Innovations?
Right, so thank you. What Western Crop Innovation is really a not-for-profit corporation that is going to build on a long-established tradition of research for disease-resistant varieties here in Alberta, building on the Field Crop Development Centre, which was established in 1973. So it's sort of a different business paradigm to carry forward a long-cherished institution.
So what has changed? So I think that's a key part of the story that we're trying to sort of understand is you did mention it's a not-for-profit, so new name, sort of a changing focus, being housed at the Lacombe Research Station, I think. Is that true?
Yes, for the moment and for the foreseeable future, we believe a good chunk of the work and the research and trialing will remain in the Lacombe region. But just to back up in terms of your question on what's changed, I think the seeds of change really began in 2019, 2020 when our government, we're the last public service that did agricultural research, and we transitioned out of those research programs and put them out to the private sector and also post-secondary institutions. So at its heart's core, that was the beginning of this change, Lindsay. And more recently now, we've trialed a few things over the last 3 years, but we've realized we have to tweak things a little bit to be a guarantor of success going into the future. So I think the seeds of change, no pun intended, were sown in 2020. And this now, we're building on lessons we have learned over 3 years of a pilot program. And we're making some adjustments that we know will be a guarantor for success going forward.
Right. So this program did transition to under Olds College, now transitioning back to be led by the government and, of course, a board of directors. Now, what will the WCI focus on? Will it be that continuation of the barley and the lines that FCDC is known to be working on? Is it an expansion plan from that?
So that's an outstanding question, and pardon me, sorry, I'm just getting over this, a prairie's cold here.
They happen.
Yeah, so what Western Crop Innovation will focus on, there's two things. There's two lines of operation. First, we need to make sure that our entity, that the former Field Crop Development Centre and the staff and the work that are ongoing there continue well past 31 March and into 2025. So there is a lot of work that the new corporation needs to do to ensure that steady state operations and research and applying for grants and working with industry stakeholders continues. The second line of operation, and what makes it a bit difficult to answer your question on futures, is a transformative one. And Western Crops Innovation will preside over a transformation conversation with our cherished stakeholders, our neighbors in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, about what's really strong since 1973, what's working great, what needs to be added to, and what possibly should take a different direction. So there's a transformative conversation over which the corporation will preside. And maybe better for you and I to talk in 6 months to answer that one part of your question about dealing in futures.
Absolutely. It's always nice to know what's up and coming. So that is a key part, though, I think that you've hit on, is that this is, a restart in a way and signaled by the change in name and a new board and those sorts of things. Now, you did mention, though, in thinking back to where sort of this started, where the Alberta government completely I mean, there was a lot of movement of where programs went and as you mentioned, to the private sector, to post-secondary education institutions. Is this one of these kinds of announcements we might see? Is there more of this in the works as far as where Alberta ends up landing as far as the provincial government goes in funding some of the research that's happening?
Well, I think I don't want to get too far out in front of my minister, R.J. Sigurdsson, but our minister does have a definite vision for the agricultural extension, knowledge mobilization in the agricultural sector, and we do have a couple of exciting irons in the fire. Because I don't own the company, I'm a public servant, so I can't go into any great detail on some of the other initiatives. What I can say about this one, and there are some common threads throughout our extension model that will be future announcements. The minister, the government of Alberta foresees that rich elixir that brings in public, private, and academic, and we've seen that work to such great effect in the European Union and in the Netherlands, which is an agricultural powerhouse. And although I said the transformative work is still to be presided over by the new corporation, we do foresee a business model going forward that blends those different pastels and brings participation in from industry and private, as well as a strong representative public slice. I think I don't think the minister would be upset with me for telegraphing that we feel that the public side of funding research like barley breeding and the kind of work that FCDC, Field Crop Development Center, has excelled in does need to continue. So I think that's probably the limit of where
We'll keep listening for more. All right, John, thank you so much for joining me. And as you mentioned, there'll be lots to cover, of course, in the months ahead as the Western Crop Innovations gets rolling. So thank you so much for joining me, John. All right, so there you have it. We've got a new board in place for Western Crop Innovations, and we've got barley breeding continuing under that program, probably a few other things that we'll have to wait to hear about. Now, this is, of course, some news, as John alluded to. It's sort of a return to bringing some of the research and extension back under the provincial purview that had actually been sort of pushed off to other organizations. I'm going to guess that there are some of you out there that have some thoughts about this or how the last 4 years of extension and research in Alberta under the provincial government has gone. I'd love to get your feedback. 1-855-776-6147 or zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. I know this is a conversation we've had many times, and certainly there has been a lot of change in a short amount of time regarding research and extension in Alberta, and so we will, as promised, try and keep up with how things are going to shake out over the next little while, because it does sound like there is still some change in the works.